a motion re affordable homes in the Poolbeg Strategic Development Zone. And I call on Deputy Owen O'Brien to move the motion.
I move the motion, Cian Corla.
And you have 20 minutes now, Deputy O'Brien, if you wish.
Yes, and I'm sharing with a number of colleagues, Cian Corla. Cian Corla, Minister, as we all know, the Poolbeg Strategic Development Zone was approved unanimously by Dublin City Councillors, moved with some amendments by An Bord Pleanála in 2019. It is probably the last major strategic residential development site in our city centre, not only for Dublin Bay South, but for the city overall. The Minister will know that following a very, very successful campaign by the Irish Glass Bottle Housing Action Group, residents from Ringsend, Irish Town and surrounding areas, in addition to the 10% social housing that would be ordinarily provided, an extra 15% affordable housing has been included in the SDZ. And I know the Minister was canvassing in the new houses in Ringsend last night and spoke to some members of the campaign. I'd be interested to hear his comments in relation to that shortly. One of the reasons why it was so important to get that 15%, of course, is, as the Minister knows, house prices in this particular part of the city have increased more dramatically than many other places, and there are families who for 3-4 generations have been living in that part of the city whose children simply cannot afford to rent or buy and don't have any prospect of rent or buying in or close to the communities in which they live, they work, they play and socialise, and therefore the delivery of these homes is absolutely paramount. Dublin City Council, in order to try and ensure the affordability of the homes in question, approached NAMA in 2019 with a view to acquiring a portion of the SDZ known as the Glass Bottle site. NAMA unusually agreed to sell that site to Dublin City Council at a discount, but despite very valiant efforts by Dublin City Council, ably assisted by the National Development Finance Agency, the Department of Housing refused to provide the finance for DCC to proceed with the purchase. And in fact, I understand from good sources that a last-minute intervention by a member of the board of NAMA to the then Minister for Housing, Owen Murphy, who was also the TD for that constituency at the time, didn't unblock the logjam, and therefore Dublin City Council was unable to purchase the site. The site was then rolled into the overall Poolbeg site, put on the open market, and again, as we know from media reports, the Johnny Ronan real estate group bought the site reputedly for a very significant price above the guide price. I have to say, why any minister would refuse to support the financing of such a key strategic site, which would have been central to lowering the delivery costs and therefore the affordability of those units, beggars belief. It's a decision I simply cannot understand. The challenge, however, is that is where we are today, and therefore responsibility falls both on this government and also constructive opposition from this side to try and identify how best we can fix the problem that we faced. It is very clear that everybody wants the affordable housing. I don't think anybody who's going to speak in this debate tonight does not want those 500 to 600 plus homes not delivered affordably. The difficulty, however, is, according to Brendan Kenny, the Director of Housing of Dublin City Council, in public comments only a couple of weeks ago, he's genuinely concerned that the nature of the development, as planned by Line Core, the vehicle leading out in the development for the Johnny Ronan real estate group, will be so expensive that even with the Standard Service Sites Fund, or even with the Higher Service Sites Fund that the Minister, I understand, is moving towards approving, you wouldn't get those units at anything close to an affordable price for people on good incomes, let alone on modest incomes. So how can we fix this particular problem? Well, the first thing is NAMA continue to control a 20% interest in the land. And therefore there is an option for government to seriously consider, which would be to see that land holding transfer from NAMA to Dublin City Council. Some people are suggesting that that should be done by way of a gift. I'm not so sure if that's possible under the NAMA Act, but it certainly would be possible for that land to be transferred by way of an advance, for example, on the ultimate dividend NAMA will pass to the state when it concludes its work, and we know that dividend is considerable. The second issue, of course, is that there's very considerable infrastructural funding both from the Department of Housing through LIHAF and the URDF, and for the Department of Transport going into the overall SDZ, somewhere in the region of 80 million, depending on how the URDF funding eventually transcribes. 50 million of LIHAF funding for the bridge to be matched by 15 million from the Department of Transport NTA, between 12 and 20 million for the Shoremore Road and the roundabout there, as well as whatever the eventual service sites fund is. Could be anything from 30 to 60 million, depending on where that eventually lands. That gives Dublin City Council and the government very, very strong bargaining leverage. Nobody wants to delay this development. We want to see all this happen quickly. But in order for the Ronan Group to make a reasonable offer for the purchase of those affordable units, fully discounted to the 80 million plus, and preferably with the land values extracted completely following a transfer from NAMA to Dublin City Council, would transform the ability of Dublin City Council to deliver affordable homes on that site. Clearly, I know the Minister can't say yes to any of that here today. That's not what we're asking. What we're saying is we need central government to become more directly involved in working with Dublin City Council and the local community to put all of those levers on the table and to come up with a plan to ensure the homes on that site can be purchased, just as, for example, homes in the Minister's own constituency will be purchased at prices of about 250,000, obviously then with the Service Sites Fund or Affordable Housing Fund, as I believe it's now called, equity portion to be repaid to the local authority at a later stage. However, we also need to be careful that the shared equity portion isn't too big or too onerous on the homeowner, and therefore the maximum level of discount on the purchase price and the lowest level of shared equity repayable, I think, is where we need to go. So I suppose we're tabling this motion in a spirit of being constructive. We're tabling this motion because we believe the ideas we're proposing are ideas that not only have widespread support, Ringsend, Irishtown and the surrounding areas, but would also have widespread support among Dublin City councillors of all parties and none, and officials who will be leading this project. My strong appeal to the Minister is this. I don't think your predecessor was particularly active in this dilemma. And I think that's why we've ended up in a situation where NAMA offering to sell land at a discount of up to 60% of the market value were unable to do that because the department of the then Minister, Owen Murphy, refused to fund it. So I'm urging government now to roll up your sleeves, to work jointly, yourself, Minister Eamon Ryan as Minister for Transport and Pascal Donoghue as Minister for Finance, directly with Dublin City Council. I understand the Irish Glass Bottle Housing Action Group have approached yourself and Eamon Ryan to meet. I'd like to see that meeting happen as urgently as possible. Again, I know you gave some commitments to the residents on a timeline for that last night. You can confirm that to us shortly. Let's work together on this. Let's ensure that on this site, that we have the maximum number of social but crucially affordable homes at prices working people can afford, and that I think if we all row in behind that community and that Irish Glass Bottle Housing Action Group, we can produce a result that's in the interest of the community, the city, and one I think we all want to see.
Now, okay, Deputy Andrews.
Thanks, Ceann Comhairle. It has been reported, and just before I start, just to acknowledge Deputy Eoin Ó Broin's putting forward this motion, and because it's been reported that a row between Dublin City Council and the Department of Housing in 2019 scuppered plans to purchase lands at Poolbeg for affordable housing. Documents released under Freedom of Information to the Sunday Business Post show the deal fell apart after the Council and Department of Housing disagreed over who should pay to purchase part of the former Irish Glass Bottle site. As a result of this row, Dublin City Council believe the failure to purchase land will make the delivery of affordable homes on the site problematic. The inability to purchase new homes is nothing new for residents in Dublin Bay South. Young working families haven't been able to purchase affordable homes for a long time. Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, Amazon and now TikTok have all moved into Ringsend and Pearse Street area and right across South Dublin. And as they have moved in, the prices of buying and renting, even modest homes, has gone through the roof. Even if so-called affordable apartments are built, the reality is that they won't be affordable to ordinary working families. 450,000, 500,000, 600,000 is not affordable, and that is what the affordable homes will be costing. Of course, the government's decision to allow vulture funds to buy up apartments is going to make ownership for ordinary working people a distant memory. They may be affordable to the high-paid executives working in the tech companies, but not to young working families. They will have to continue to live with their parents or pay huge rents that prevents them from saving for a home. Capital Dock, which throws a shadow over Ringsend and Pearse Street, has massive rents and is of no benefit to the ordinary working people living in its shadow. No public housing was delivered in the Ringsend or Pearse Street area as a result of the Capital Dock development, and many of the apartments are empty in an effort to keep the rents high and manipulate the market. In June of last year on News Talk, yourself, Minister, said that he would be looking at house prices in the region of 160,000 to 250,000 on a shared equity basis. Now it seems the affordable homes, if delivered in Ringsend or Harold's Cross or anywhere in Dublin Bay South, will be 450,000. 450,000 cannot possibly be classed as affordable. How can ordinary workers ever hope of buying a house in the community they went to school in? I recently met with the Irish Glass Bottle Housing Action Group with my colleague Senator Lynn Boylan and Councillor Daniel Caton. The IGB Housing Action Group have campaigned tirelessly for affordable homes on the Glass Bottle site and are extremely concerned that there will be no public housing on this site or affordable. And if there is affordable, it will not be affordable to ordinary working families. Can the Minister state that there will be affordable homes on the Glass Bottle site and they will not cost over €450,000? Homes need to be building blocks for stronger communities, not just assets to make profits from. Fine Gael represents the vulture funds and they were ably assisted by Labour and Minister Brendan Howlin when he was in partnership with Fine Gael. I, like most TDs in Dublin Bay South, am regularly contacted by residents in Ringsend, Sandymount and Pearse Street, desperate for secure and decent accommodation. They're not looking to get it for free. One family recently contacted me because their council flat has nearly three teenagers in one bedroom. The girl has the single bunk and sharing with her two teenage brothers. Both parents work hard and pay €150 a week for a flat that is barely habitable, despite their best efforts to keep it well, which they do given the circumstances. Their children are afraid to leave their flat because of the drug dealing and the random violence around their home. So €600 a month they pay to Dublin City Council and they feel trapped and worried, not for themselves but for their children. I met another couple yesterday who said that they had who have one child and two jobs with two relatively good incomes. They don't qualify for public housing because of their income. They don't qualify for a mortgage because of their income. So they are trapped in uncertain rental and are weary, and as they said, they feel broken. That's what this government's policy is doing. It's breaking people and it's breaking society. The Glass Bottle site should be a real opportunity for people to be housed in decent, safe and secure accommodation. However, this won't happen with the plans this government has for affordable housing. There is a by-election shortly on July the 8th, as you know, Minister, you were canvassing yesterday. So residents have an opportunity to tell government that they are fed up with this government's housing policy and they want public homes on public land. They want affordable homes and they want affordable rental which ordinary people can afford. This needs to be our town, not Google town. Thanks.
Deputy Mark Ward.
Minister, we're in a housing crisis because the government's plan isn't working. We're in a housing crisis because the previous government's plan did not work. The legacy left by Fine Gael's disastrous former Housing Minister Owen Murphy from the by-election area of Dublin Bay South is something our children and children's children will be the victim of for decades. That's unless real change doesn't happen. This is the change that Sinn Féin will deliver. This is not just some ideology, it's a fact and it's a simple strategy. Our housing policy put people before developers. Our housing policies put workers and families before vultures and cuckoos. Our housing policies will allow families and workers to have a safe and secure, affordable roof over their heads. I've seen some of the commentary by Fianna Fáil TDs recently, Minister, trying to distance themselves from the failed Fine Gael policies. I think Fianna Fáil like to forget that they were in confidence and supply with Fine Gael. And what had Fianna Fáil got confidence in? Was it confidence in the supply of homes? Let me remind you of what Fianna Fáil had so much confidence in. Not a single affordable home to buy or rent has been delivered by central government under Fine Gael. During Fine Gael's time in office, house prices have spiralled out of control right across the state. In 2011, the average rent of the state was €781 per month. They are now €1,256. In Dublin, they're €1,745. That's $10,000 a year increase. In my own area of Clondalkin and Lucan, the average rent is over €2,000 a month and rising. So what exactly did Fianna Fáil have so much confidence in Fine Gael for? The current government is just another form of confidence in supply. Fianna Fáil have taken over the baton from Fine Gael. The ordinary worker and families are still struggling by the lack of affordability in housing. The government just keep making the same mistakes. They are continuing to prop up developers and investment funds. They are ignoring the voice of experts. Sinn Féin has a plan to build homes and to cut rents and will implement this when in government. People just need to get a secure roof over their heads so they can put down roots. The right to a home should be one of the pillars of our society. And this motion calls for a genuinely affordable homes on the Irish glass bottle site in the Poolbeg SDZ to be delivered. And I commend everyone who has campaigned for public housing on this site. One thing that the government can do is seek to have NAMA's 20% interest in the Poolbeg lands transferred to South Dublin County Council. It will be yet another example of Fine Gael's dismal housing record that was supported fully by Fianna Fáil.
Thank you. Deputy Desi Ellis.
The sale of the glass bottle site at Poolbeg to the Ronan Group and its consortium will prove to be a profitable cash cow for these private developers. There is a proposal to build 3,500 new homes on this important site, which has been in state hands for over a decade. However, the motivation of private developers is to maximise their profits and to sell off the houses at the highest possible price. House prices have increased by 13% in the past year, with people now paying an average of €34,000 more for a home than last year. In Dublin, the average house price now range from between €350,000 to €600,000. Even at the lowest price range of €350,000, this cannot be in any way regarded as being affordable to a vast majority of people. The money invested in the former glass bottle site would suggest that prices on homes in this development will be out of the reach for most people. If this is the case that arises, then there is nothing short of scandalous at a time when people are struggling to get on the property ladder or even rent a home. The previous housing minister was offered a site by NAMA at a 50% reduction, which if he followed through and bought the site, it could have been given over to the local authority, which could have enhanced the number of social and affordable houses being delivered. Instead, he refused the offer, and true to form for a Fine Gael minister imposing Fine Gael policies, not a single affordable home to buy or to rent has been delivered centrally by this government. Both NAMA and the Minister for Finance have conceded that they are clueless as to what the rent are expected to be or the sale price will be for the affordable homes on this site. It was a condition of the planning for the 3,500 homes that 15% of the units on the site would be affordable and 10% would be social housing. The Minister has to date indicated that he regards apartments up to a price of $450,000 as affordable. What price would the Minister envisage for new homes in this development? I can see a situation where those who were born and raised in the area, particularly around the Ringsend and Irishtown area, will not be able to afford these homes and will have to move out of their area. At the moment, there is nothing to stop vulture funds coming in and buying up large numbers of these homes and renting them out at exorbitant prices. Minister, what guarantees can you give that vulture funds won't once again take from a diminishing housing stock? Minister, are you concerned that the developer could possibly offer to give 15% affordable and 10% social on another site other than this one to fulfil his obligations? In the interests of social inclusion and integration, there should be a proper mix throughout the development of the social, affordable and private homes. We should not have the situation, as is often the case in the past, where the social and affordable housing was lumped into one corner of a development. Minister, there are serious concerns of the community over this development that have not been addressed. And many of these concerns have been raised by local organisations such as the Irish Glass Bottle Housing Action Group, who feel that their community is being ignored. These communities deserve better and they deserve to be heard. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank the opportunity to speak on this PMB and thank the Minister for his speech. They are somehow affordable and housing are two words that don't seem to go together very much in this state. And I don't think they will while we have a government ideology that leaves housing, one of our most basic needs as human beings, at the mercy of the markets. And what a mercy the market is. According to the Irish Times yesterday, house prices in Dublin are surging by €1,500 a week since March. €1,500 a week since March. Even, the Bank of Mammy and Daddy, so beloved by your colleagues, Minister, would have to be a mega bank to afford to keep up with those prices. And for those who don't have banks of Mammy and Daddy, can't be, the news is especially worrying, as it is for the people who can't manage any savings, barely hanging on after a year and a half of the COVID-19 pandemic. When you live week to week or month to month and your salary goes straight out the door on rent or mortgage, on food and the basics of living, maybe a takeaway on a Friday night, there's not a whole lot left for trips, socialising, shopping or entertainment. These people are by the pin of their collar, and they are also the pillars of our state, running to stand still, just about keeping going. And it is for those hard-working people we need the 900 homes in affordable homes in Poolbeg, and this is what necessitated this PMB. When it comes to their housing need, they are ignored by Fine Gael, under whose tenure house prices went up 88% nationally and by 95% in Dublin, all according to Michael Noonan's plan, just what he had intended. This is a government who wants to shoo our young people, our best and brightest, into co-living, the new tenements, bargain basement living standards at top dollar prices. Our hard-working adult children shrinking their own housing dreams to fit the profit need and greed of the favoured few. This is a government who is giving us tent cities, cheek by jowl with penthouse living. A government who believes in making housing a privilege. A government that didn't provide a single affordable home to buy or to rent thus far. In 2011, average rents across the state were $781 a month. In 2021, I have a woman in North Kildare who's paying $780 a month for a single room in a house. The bank haven't taken away her home that she had paid a small fortune on mortgage throughout the years. I have a stream of young couples, mortgage approved, who can't buy a home because they are outbid at every turn. And then the cuckoos come and throw them out of their potential nest. Other couples in good jobs who can't even get mortgage approval. All this ruinous expense, ruinous experience straight on the backs of our workers. And it is cheap and it is vulgar. It degrades us as a society and it diminishes us as a people. When people see their most basic need, the need for a home, left to the tyranny of the market, it says to them that you don't matter, you are less than. Your needs do not matter in the important business of the state. And if, for any state, housing its people either to rent or to buy is not important business, I ask you what is. In North Kildare, I have so many people hanging on by a thread over housing. People of all ages, babies to the elderly, all of them in crisis. And be in no doubt there is a crisis, and I'm glad that you said that, Minister. For them and for the state, it is a humanitarian crisis of your making, and which we have to solve. In your unguarded, unmanaged moments, your government talk about public housing as free housing, when it is no such thing. This demeaning and totally incorrect talk shows you haven't a clue about what you're talking about on public housing. You don't even know how it works. In public housing, everybody pays their rent according to their means. But that you persist, and that your colleagues persist, in the myth of free housing shows your dislike and distrust of people who can't afford to buy a home of their own. And none of us knows how our own lives will turn out.
ever,
I said
and she
your
should
colleagues,
withdraw
Minister.
them. Because they're just wrong.
Minister, I
and
said
you know
your colleagues in
You're not going to be led away with your propaganda this evening.
Minister, if you want to check out your colleagues in government, maybe you should. That's what they call it. They call it free housing.
Minister.
And none of them know how our lives. It doesn't, and interrupt me there being so glib and so dismissive. The only people getting free housing in this country are the cuckoos and the vultures and the developers with their own cash cow leases. And I suggest you go and educate yourself, Minister, about who you're in bed with. You seem to be unable to grasp either of it. Put social and affordable, really affordable housing back at the Poolbeg site. €450,000 is not affordable. And don't pretend that Sinn Féin has caused this housing crisis. Don't bottle it.
Ingus Osnodi, Anna. Yeah.
Cormagat, Lachcam Corla, Cormagat, Owen, Assendesh, Hurtuing, on Ganesha, Flay, Treat and Rune Shaw, Coros, Cornadala, Mascochery, Havok, Cadarlin, Shin, Agus Cadarlin, Shay, Eganamata and Pubble, in Air came to Hirta. Egamata and Desh, Egan Pubble, Fohauchan, no, in Ain Tauchan, Mark Yenov, Pop, Gwynna, Shudata, Tracy, Kesht, August Gare came to Hirte, Le Bliente. Minister, there's a scandal that's highlighted in this motion. It's a scandal that the state was offered land at a discount and that it didn't take it up. In fact, the exact opposite. It seemed to have done everything in its power to avoid could be used for housing and which would have ensured that people in this country who are crying out for housing, whether it's rental, whether it's for purchase or even private purchase, that has not been afforded to them by this government or the previous government or the one before that. This crisis in houses is not something that just appeared out of nowhere. It is caused by years of inaction, years of lack of investment. And every time I've spoken on housing in recent times, I've had the criers in the backbenches of the government saying, we object to this, that and the other. Well, in fact, I don't object just willy-nilly. My record stands for itself in supporting housing and proper housing throughout the country. I support housing and I support social and affordable housing on public land. I support private housing on private land. I don't support dog boxes, which our last Minister of Housing wanted to build, and many of the estates and many of the places that have been designated for residential. Minister, it is time to act, and yes, I acknowledge that you have at long last started to move for affordable housing and affordable rental. Started to move. This is a problem which was highlighted to you and to your governments over the last number of governments. That if you look at, for instance, Michael's estate has been demolished. How many years, Minister? There is still not a house, affordable or social house, built on that land. That's public land. And I can list off a whole range of public lands in my area. There's also lands which the state hasn't even bothered talking to the state partners in the likes of CIE, where you have 30 acres which are underutilised and unused in my constituency, which I would support housing built on, as promised way back in 2008, 2009. There's the OPW lands in the next door to it, which had planning permission for 300 houses. The OPW stores desks and tables on it. That had 300 houses. Cherry Orchard, we've been to the fore in trying to ensure that the very same type of housing that we're talking about here, private for purchase, affordable housing and affordable rental, as well as social housing on the public sector. That's what is needed. It's not just needed down the glass bottle site, which I know very, very well from my youth, but it's also needed on every single land. But it's not good enough to be talking about it. You need to invest in the councils to make sure that the councils can deliver, and you need to also end the scandal that you're trying to create by building up the Land Development Agency, which is going to interfere with the democratic rights of citizens and councillors across this city. Minister, I can list off a whole range of areas that need to be developed, and need to be developed quickly, because it's not just a matter of saying, yes, we want to do this. It needs to be done as quickly as possible, and that hasn't been seen by this government or none of the last 4 governments. People are going to start emigrating in huge droves again, as they did in the past when there wasn't any opportunities for them. In this case, it's opportunities to have houses. Cormagat.
Féin, ich to Paul Donnelly.
Minister, I've been down at the site of the former glass bottle site over the past number of weeks whilst we were down there canvassing for Central in Boylan, and I was struck by the potential for that site in relation to the future of our city. And the key question for everyone involved in delivering a plan for this site now is, how do we want to see our city grow in the next decade? And everything else will follow from that question. Is the vision an extension of the so-called Google town? Or is it a vision that creates a situation that homes will be out of reach for most of our citizens, as they currently are? I'm from just across the river from Ringsend, in fact just a couple of 100 metres from here in Sheriff Street, and was reared in East Wall. And if I was born in both of those areas today, I would never be able to afford to live here. I see my old friends and neighbours and their children who are unable to afford the current rent, let alone have any chance of buying any of the multitude of apartments that are empty around this building. We also have a site in Dublin 15 in my constituency that has been sitting there ready to go for over 4 years. The site is called Church Fields in Mulhuddard. Its site has been shovel ready, and yet less than 100 social houses have been built around the periphery. There's huge potential for that site to integrate with the surrounding communities. And when I was a councillor in Fingal County Council, I supported the council in relation to every site on every single occasion, and every step of the way it got 100% support. Yet we have not had one single affordable house built on that site or any other site since it was brought to us in 2017. The council management kept telling us that they couldn't proceed as they didn't have the funding or the figures for an affordable housing scheme from the government. And just to note, because it's been mentioned a couple of times around Sinn Féin and our opposition to housing, I challenge any minister to go out to Fingal and to look at all of the estates that have been built in the last number of years, from Hollystown, Hansfield, right down into Ongar, all the way down to Pelletstown. And there's only 2 developments that we've opposed. One is a co-living development and one is a build-to-rent. And both of those are opposed also by government ministers who are sitting in this government. The recent Journal poll has shown how out of touch this government is in relation to what they believe is affordable and what the vast majority of citizens believe is an affordable home. As only 4% of those polled believe that anything near €400,000 would be deemed affordable. Close to 50% believe that an affordable home should cost in the region of between €200,000 and €300,000. This is not far off actually what it costs on Coolan Group to provide affordable house in Ballymun. In fact, the very first scheme that they put to market, and we met them, Boy Coolan several years ago, had a starting price of $144,000 for the 2-bed, while a 4-bed was sold for $244,000. They've shown that this can be replicated across the state. You can do it, but you choose not to. This motion calls for genuinely affordable homes on the Irish Glass Bottle site in Poolbeg West, the SDZ, to be delivered. It would also set the tone for all other affordable housing schemes throughout the state, including the one I mentioned in my own area in Mulhuddard, the Church Fields. But unfortunately, I believe that overall, despite some crumbs from the table for workers, that this government is wedded to the private market. It's wedded to the developers, and it's wedded to the vultures and the cuckoo groups. Gurmagat.
To conclude.
Thank you, Las Ceann Comhairle, and thank the Minister of State for his remarks. The Irish Glass Bottle Housing Action Group were formed in 2016. They have been campaigning vigorously, securing cross-party support and widespread community support during all of that time. That's 5 years of a campaign, and 5 years, of course, that Fine Gael have been in government, and for most of that time in charge of housing. And I think the thing that really galls many people in those communities is the state had an opportunity to buy that land at a discount, which would have guaranteed greater affordability, and a Fine Gael Minister of Housing opted not to take that option. So what we're now faced with is the genuine fear that the price that would be set by the developer for the affordable homes will be somewhere between 500,000 and 600,000 euros, and that's the view of Dublin City Council. And the key issue here for the people in that part of our city and the others who would like to live there is price. An affordable home means an average home purchased for a price of about 250,000 euros, and there may or may not be a service sites fund clawback charge on top of that. Now, the Minister of State is absolutely right. The developer is benefiting from very, very significant infrastructural grants, much needed infrastructural grants that I have no objection to. 50 million, in fact, of infrastructural grants between the Department of Transport and the Department of Housing, an affordable housing fund, anything up to 60 million euros, depending on where that application eventually goes. But also NAMA continues to have an interest in the land, and while we don't know the price, that value could be anything up to about 90 million euros. So there's a lot of taxpayers' money sitting in that site, for which ultimately the developer will benefit, because that infrastructure and that service sites fund will unlock many aspects of the development. And all of that needs to be factored in to the price that the Johnny Ronan Group and Linacor eventually offer Dublin City Council for the purchase of the affordable homes. I mean, that would actually average out at a unit discount of about 250,000 euros per affordable home, assuming the affordable homes will be somewhere in the region of 600. And the purpose of this motion, I suppose, is to communicate to government not only the need for government to get more involved in supporting Dublin City Council and the local community, but also to send a very, very clear signal to the developer that if the developer wants the government to be a partner in this hugely important strategic development zone master plan and its delivery, then the developer has to offer units for affordable purchase at a significantly lower price than 500 or 600,000 euros. That means the developer themselves has to absorb a large volume of the discount. It cannot all be on the shoulders of the Affordable Housing Fund and the clawback for the affordable purchaser. So I absolutely welcome Minister O'Brien's commitment to bring the various players together. I think doing it after the by-election is absolutely the right time, but it has to be real. It has to be the Department of Transport, the Department of Housing and the Department of Finance weighing in behind Dublin City Council, Dublin City councillors and the communities of Ringsend, Irishtown and the surrounding areas to get the best deal possible. Yes, for the taxpayer, I absolutely agree with the Minister of State for that. Yes, for the city, but crucially for the affordable purchasers, and that means delivering homes at a price we widely afford. So the key test will not be what any of us say today, but whether or not those affordable homes become a reality for the working families who are today being priced out of that part of our city. I want to put on the record that I welcome the People Before Profit amendments, and I'm more than happy to accept them. They're completely within the spirit of the private member's motion that Sinn Féin has tabled here today. And I want to conclude by responding to two of Minister O'Brien's broader points. The Minister is absolutely right. The time for delay has to end. And that means, for example, the delay on Oscar Traynor. The Minister has to decide, is he going to step up to the plate and work with Dublin City councillors and officials to deliver those 800 plus social, affordable rental and affordable purchase homes. So far, he has been very reluctant to state his intentions in that regard. But the Minister also needs to explain why other developments are logjammed. St Michael's Estate, 100% public homes. In fairness to Damien English, when he was the Minister of State, he worked very well with many of us in this chamber and the local community. But it was 2018 that was approved in principle, and not a brick has been laid. So the dead hand of both the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform and aspects of the Department of Housing's four-stage approval process have to change if we're going to get those projects up and running. And in my own constituency in Kishogue, over 250 social and affordable homes. My local authority in South Dublin County Council has been made jump through hoop after hoop by Public Expenditure and Reform in the Department of Housing to do all sorts of appraisals, when in fact that scheme was already agreed in principle in the Strategic Development Zone, voted on by the elected members, albeit opposed by Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil in the single largest opposition of any group of councillors to residential development anywhere in the state, 8,000 to 11,000 homes. And in fact, the Fine Gael group leader appealed it to An Bord Pleanála, delaying it by a year. But now that we got it through, thanks to Sinn Féin and others, we need that to move further. And crucially, on the Affordable Housing Bill and the legislation in front of the Dáil, bills don't build homes. Direct investment does. And we will judge the government's commitment to affordable housing not by what it says, but what's in the Homes for All action plan when it's published, and crucially what level of increased investment we see in Budget 2022, because only increased investment in the direct delivery of affordable homes for working people is what's going to bring this crisis to an end. Thank you, Last Corla.
That concludes the debate on the private member's business, and there's an amendment on the table. Are you incorporating that into your motion?
We are, yes.
Okay, so is that agreed?
Agreed.
That's agreed. Okay, so the question is that the motion as amended be agreed to.
Agreed.
Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.